Anytime someone falls into a coma, it's terrifying, not just for the person themselves, but for everyone who loves them. Their body might still be there, but their mind? It's like staring at a locked door and not knowing if it'll ever open again. Families cling to hope. Doctors speak in cautious tones, and every beep of a heart monitor becomes a prayer. But every once in a while something extraordinary happens. A miracle. A moment when the door creaks open and someone steps back into the world. This is the story the world thought it knew about a Polish man named Jan Grzycki, a railway worker who, according to headlines, spent 19 years in a coma before waking up to a world that had changed beyond recognition. But what if I told you that story wasn't exactly true? In fact, the truth might be even more bizarre than the fiction. Let's rewind to 2007. The Polish newspaper Gazeta Giełdowska dropped a bombshell story that took off like wildfire across the globe. The headline? A man named Jan Grzycki had just woken up from a 19-year coma. The article claimed Jan had fallen into the coma back in 1988 after suffering a traumatic head injury while working on the railway. Doctors gave him little chance of survival, but his devoted wife Gertruda never gave up. She stayed by his bedside for nearly 2 decades, praying, crying, and caring for him as if he could hear every word. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, Jan opened his eyes. He spoke. He remembered. He was back. People were stunned. TV outlets ran features. News sites reposted the story with minor edits, turning it into modern folklore. A man had slept through the fall of the Soviet Union, the rise of the internet, mobile phones, globalization, and woke up into a world full of iPods, fast food, and reality TV. It was real-life Goodbye Lenin, many journalists said, referencing the 2003 German film where a mother wakes up from a coma after the fall of East Germany, and her son desperately tries to hide the truth about how the world had changed. Jan was even quoted in the Daily Telegraph, marveling at supermarkets full of food and people walking around with mobile phones. "When I went into a coma, there was only tea and vinegar in the shops," he reportedly said. "Meat was rationed. Petrol queues were endless. Now, I see people with cell phones, and the stores are full of goods. It makes my head spin." Heartwarming, right? Almost too cinematic to be true. And, well, that's because it kind of was. As the story spread, a few skeptical reporters started asking questions. One of them, from The Guardian, decided to go straight to the source, Jan Grzycki himself. And that's when everything unraveled. "I never said any of those things," Jan told the journalist. "I was not in a coma for 19 years. I only spoke to one journalist, and what they wrote was not true. And every time the story was printed, new things emerged." Wait. What? Turns out Jan had indeed suffered a head injury in 1988. That part was true, but according to Jan himself, he had only been in a coma for 4 years, not 19. After waking up, he remained disabled and used a wheelchair, but he was aware, communicative, and mentally present. The dramatic sleeping through a generation angle? Total myth. Even Jan's Dr. Wacław Kostrubiec, backed him up. He said that while Jan had been seriously disabled for nearly 2 decades, he wasn't unconscious the whole time. He wasn't in a coma, the doctor confirmed. He responded, he understood, he communicated. So how did this fairy tale get so out of hand? At the heart of the story was Gazeta Giełdowska, the original Polish newspaper that first reported Jan's so-called 19-year coma. When The Guardian reached out to the paper's editor-in-chief, Małgorzata Łatkowska, they expected either a correction or a retraction, but instead they got confusion. "It's not a lie," she said. "There are different kinds of coma. Some people are unconscious. Others wake up from time to time, then fall back. That was the case with Jan." She wasn't exactly wrong. Coma states can vary, and definitions aren't always clear-cut. But calling Jan's condition a coma for dramatic effect, that's a stretch. Especially when even Jan's wife Gertruda admitted he had been aware all along. "He understood everything I said to him," she told The Guardian. "At first, he used his face to let me know if he wanted food or drink. Later, he spoke. So why did she go along with the Coma story in the first place? No clear answer. Maybe she wanted to honor the journalist who first told the story. Maybe she didn't realize how far it would spiral. Or maybe she was just tired and didn't have the energy to argue with headlines. Whatever the reason, the story had already taken on a life of its own. And what about John? Did he resent the media frenzy? Was he angry that the world saw him as a real-life Rip Van Winkle? Actually, no. He didn't care. He wasn't in it for the fame. He didn't want interviews. He didn't chase attention. He had something better: his health, his family, and the woman who stood by his side through everything, Gertruda, the quiet hero of the story. Whether Jan was in a coma or not, she cared for him every day for 19 years. She fed him, bathed him, talked to him. She believed in his mind even when others had given up. People like to say love is patient, but this was love on another level. So maybe Jan's story wasn't the medical miracle the headlines made it out to be. Maybe he didn't sleep through a revolution and wake up shocked by smartphones and capitalism. But what did happen is arguably even more meaningful. A man was broken, but not gone. A woman stayed when no one else would. And the truth, while messier and less magical, was profoundly human. It's easy to see why the original story took off. It had all the ingredients: tragedy, mystery, loyalty, and a feel-good twist. In a world desperate for hope, Jan's miracle was irresistible. But it also shows how quickly a story can get twisted when details get lost in translation, and when one journalist's exaggeration becomes another newsroom's headline. The media didn't fact-check. They didn't verify quotes. They just ran with the myth, because myths get clicks. And that's something worth remembering in today's digital world. Not every viral story is real, and not every real story needs to go viral to matter. So, in the end, John Grzebski's tale wasn't one of a man waking up to a new world. It was about a man surviving, slowly healing, and learning to live again. It wasn't about lost time. It was about love that never left. And that's a story worth telling. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, give us a like, and don't forget to subscribe. We dig deep to find the truth behind the headlines and the humanity behind the hype. Until next time, stay curious.